Hi everyone, while we're getting coffee and getting settled, we're gonna start in about 2 minutes with our speakers. But while we're getting settled, I'm going to read the land acknowledgement statement. As a reminder, I'm Shannon Chang, president of the board of Martin Luther Tower Incorporated in St. Mark's Square, also a member here. I'm reading the land acknowledgement statement today on behalf of Margaret McLean, who was hoping to make it, but she was couldn't make it this morning. So St. Mark's Square sits on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush peoples, who are the original inhabitants of what is called the San Francisco Peninsula, and who were the first to gather, love, grow, cry, celebrate, and sing in this place. With God's help, we strive to grow toward right relationships with Indigenous people and the earth. With openness of heart and spirit, we hold ourselves accountable to respect and steward the land, its grasses and trees, and creatures great and small. Let it be so in all our relations. And our speakers have said they can introduce themselves. I know we're really excited for the program today. Thank you so much all for being here. I think it's a really timely program to hear about the activism that our speakers are doing, the activism that all the organizations that they're involved with, and how community is a form of resistance and resilience. So I'll let you take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think you're just stand over here, folks. Hi, welcome. So I'm Sister Shalita Corndog of the San Francisco Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And thanks for being here. I wanted to just say right off the bat, I want to put a disclaimer here. I am not a historian. I have not mustered the courage to read the diary of Anne Frank from cover to cover. But I do understand the parallels, especially from that era, and her hope until her untimely murder. So I get it, but I'm not an Anne Frank specialist. That's all I really want to say. So as a sister, I've been on the board of the sisters for the past 3 years. I also serve as a community activist, and I have since the tender age of 17. That was my first big activist stunt. My day job is I have an outpatient psychiatric practice in the financial district. I specialize in neurodivergencies and child and adolescent, all the way through adult. I'm also a board member of the California Association of Nurse Practitioners, a lobbyist, but a good one, not a bad one. And I represent the Bay Area in helping lawmakers understand how legislation affects providers and their ability to provide good care. I also want to welcome some very, very special people in my life. Hi, Glenn. Like Glenn. I want to welcome my dads, William Watsavelka and Michael Thorburn. They are two superheroes in my life. They give me my inspiration, my endless search and understanding of justice and fighting for justice and rescuing me from a life that I did not want to live. Thank you for being here. And this is my new relationship, Barak, who came from Istanbul to New York to San Francisco and has a story worthy of a 3-hour feature film. And I'm so blessed that he's here. And of course, Sister Roma, who I admire more than anything. Yeah.
A little different.
So before I introduce this special person, I just wanted to remind us that unfront story is proof that courage is not measured by the size of the stage, but actually more by the depth of the conviction. You don't know the ripple effects courage will have. Courage can be simply walking out of your house dressed like this and having that one person see this and feel okay about some part of their identity. And also, I want to remind people that courage today takes many, many, many forms. Right now, we see courage as the people in the streets, the people standing in front of the agent, people battling in court, right? The lawmakers that are going back and forth, and we're all exhausted watching back and forth. Okay, grow up, you know? I think the important aspect to draw from Anne Frank's story is to tell the truth. Tell the truth about what's happening. Make sure what you're spreading and believing is something you understand as truth. And document, write, video. This is important during fascist time. So now, I would like to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Nas Mohamed. This man embodies a very, very powerful kind of courage. He was born in Qatar. He grew up in a very conservative society, a small town, I believe, where being his authentic self was very, very dangerous. He studied, he found his way to the prestigious Weill Cornell School of Medicine, and in 2017 sought asylum and was granted asylum. Thank you, 2017. Like Anne Frank, he refused to let fear define his life or silence the truth. In 2022, Dr. Nas became Qatari's enemy number maybe 1, 2, 3, definitely top 3, which is terrifying as people who love him. But wow, we are in the presence of greatness. He went on the BBC, CNN, like networks to blow the lid off of how the Qatari government treats gay people. And when they were having the World Cup, Dr. Nas wasn't having it. And went on the record, and what an honor, what an honor to be president.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I was really happy and honored when you reached out to me and said, would you come out and speak with me? Because it tells me that a part of me connects to a part of you. And I don't take that for granted. I don't, like when another human reaches out to me and say, would you stand with me? I see a piece of you reflected back. I think it's beautiful, and I think, it's a moment of human connection, so thank you for having me, and thank you for all of you for taking a moment to come in and hear us speak. You selected something for me to read out loud from the diary of Anne Frank that says, how wonderful it is that nobody needs to wait a single moment before starting to go wrong. And, I have some people here that saw, witnessed some of my journey, so Roma saw from the very beginning, actually, before I went to Roma as a stranger, and we happened to sit at the same table at the Academy Market, and the World Cup was happening, and I'll go back and tell you a little bit more about my reflections and the context and all of that in a minute. But I just wanted to say that, you know, at that moment when we were sitting at the table, none of us thought that we're playing the fact of what was gonna happen. So I told Roma I'm gonna come out. And then I didn't know I was gonna be the very first one to ever come out as gay from Qatar. And I did, and I did go ahead on BBC World. When the Arabic BBC segment aired in Qatar, hundreds of thousands came up to me, and then I was the one holding the information, and then shared under conditions reporting with the Human Rights Watch and Mr. International and government officials, and then ended up forming and leading now the only LGBT nonprofit representing gay rights in the Gulf states in the Middle East. And now, just 2 weeks ago, heard that Cambridge University will have it in the academic press as the story of LGBT rights in the Gulf states. And, you know, it just had its own life. And I'll come back and have some reflections about that. But again, thank you again for having me here.
Amazing. Amazing. So before we get too into it, I want to tell you a little bit about my ideology. I get labeled Jewish. I'm not actually Jewish, but I'm by law Jewish. My mom is Jewish. I am mystic. Mysticism is Judaism, is Christianity, is Muslim. The form of mysticism I practice is called Merkaba mysticism. The Merkaba is the chariot of God. Merkaba mysticism believes that through experiences with the divine, you can have visions, you can receive messages that can help and guide you in this life. They predate Kabbalah mystics. They predate the Persian Magi, the Magi. Also, as many of you might know of, the three wise men. Those were the Persian Magi. So my belief system stems from very ancient ideology. I also want to tell people who don't already know that I was engaged to be married to a wonderful friend, Gilad. Gilad and I loved meeting people from all walks of life. I still do. Gilad, unfortunately, can no longer because his life was taken on the border of the West Bank on October 7th. I'm telling this to you all because Gilad loved the Palestinian people. Gilad loved his favorite musician was in the West Bank. He would go and listen weekly. And I call him, aren't you scared? Aren't you scared? No, you don't understand. They're great people. We love it here. We have got to stop the martyrdom of the Jewish people in order for this to pass. I have never viewed what happened to my beloved friend as a reason to be a victim, as a reason to hate, as a reason to justify. And I want to just be very clear about that. The narratives that have developed over the last almost 2 years are so divisive, so dangerous, and they are so intentional. They're planned. And we're falling into the plan like puppets, unaware of the bigger plan. And now are in the next phase of the bigger plan against the darkness. And we're all gagging and afraid. And we're trying to encourage this one to fix it. This one, I elected you, you fix it. Nobody is going to fix this. This is not fixable. So we have to figure out a better way. A better way, what I believe, is to look across at the other side. Whatever your side is, look across to the other side. When I learned Hamas had taken my friend, I prayed for Hamas. To this day, every day, I pray for them. How tortured they must feel every night, putting their heads on pillows, knowing what they are responsible for in their life. I pray for their health. I pray that they wake up. I pray for Donald Trump. I pray for MAGA Republicans. I pray for my enemy because I believe in a creator, and I believe the creator commands me to love my enemies. I also believe in a creator that commands me not to judge. How can I judge the acts of a person? And we were just talking about this. How can I judge the acts of a person who from the time they were old enough to walk was indoctrinated into this ideology that the way to get into heaven is if you eradicate this group. So honor us, honor me, honor your father, honor your mother, and eradicate that group. Hate that group. Exclude that group. And that group is not just the Jews. Every one of us in here can fit into a group. Fascism thrives when we are pushed to the margins. To survive it is to bring people from the margins back to the center. That's what we're doing today. This is how we survive fascism. We do not change minds. The only person that can change your mind is yeah, that's really, when I was asked to speak, I was asked to speak about identifying things, your own unique skills at an individual level, and then utilizing what you have, recognizing your strengths, but also recognizing your limitations. That's very Shalita Corndog. I said, absolutely. Absolutely. And then I got the marketing material and saw Mustering the Courage of Anna From. You don't know this, Tandri. I had a reaction to that. I understand the parallels. To me, what courage did it take for Anna Frank to be a teenage girl and be boy crazy and write it in a diary? What courage did it take for her to be forced into hiding? What courage did it take for her to be sent off and murdered, slaughtered? Her coping skill to survive that was to write a diary. We can look back and see that just documenting what was happening was courageous. Yes. How about mustering the courage of the unnamed and unknown people who put their own safety and freedom on the line to get fake passports, fake birth certificates? Are any of you willing to do that today? Think about this. Recognize what you're willing to do, how far you can go, and then do it. And I'm so glad Sister Roma's here, because Sister Roma and I are very in sync when it comes to one thing: safety. I'm just speaking for myself. I am never going to put myself in front of a person of authority that has an arresting power. For what? They can arrest me. I can't help anybody if I am sitting somewhere, God knows where. So that's my limit. I can't do that. I can ask names, I can film, I can document, I can record, and then I can rally my troops and my network and try to figure it out and help. But I'm not going to intervene because it's dangerous. It's dangerous. So be mindful of safety. Always stay safe. But safety is complex. It doesn't always just apply to physical safety. If you have a license to practice something or do something, and you are involved in certain things like helping people get asylum, hiding people, it's an individual judgment, and no one should judge anyone else for their inability or ability or how far they're willing to or not go. So now I would love for Dr. Nas to go over and tell us more from his perspective.
Thank you again for holding space and for really just gathering and then approaching a conversation that seems so approachable, right? And I don't rehearse my speeches, and I don't get two speeches that are the same, and I'm gonna talk to you differently about what happened to me and about what I do in a way that's more vulnerable, that is, I hope is more relatable, and I hope is more applicable to what we're seeing. Like today, where I stand, I have the privilege of being in spaces where I can really like influence a lot of change. On the stages I speak in the rooms where I stand, in the craft that I do as a physician, but also as now a nonprofit leader. But I really want to go back to before any of this happened. And I want to talk to you a little bit more and be more vulnerable and tell you like what happened. I want to go back to before I even decided to leave home. And I want to go back to my 4 years old self and tell you a little bit about that. Okay? And at that time, when I was 4, we had a small garden in the back. I'm one of 9 kids, and we lived in a rural area. I didn't really mingle with a lot of people, and in my world, I was 4 years old. Here, I had the backyard. There were some birds that I named that were my friends, and I loved a swing that my siblings made, and I loved my PlayStations and one of my rooms. I didn't really have technology or anything like that. There were just a bunch of mattresses and blankets folded, and that was my world. And my world was so amazing. I had really probably the most exhilarating excitement going in playing under that blanket. Honestly, I don't think I experienced that as an adult. Again, like it was just so exciting. It was so awesome. And I just felt like I completely belonged. I belonged in that garden, and I belonged with the birds, and I belonged with mom and dad, and I belonged with my family. And my dreams as a kid were so wild, and I had the craziest dreams, like, and they were reflected in the way I would play. Like I would create like mermaid caves under the bed, and like was just like coming up with those like insane realities, and I just was able to dream and hope and never once questioned if I belonged ever. And then as I got to grow up and meet other humans, I started to see parts of myself reflected back in the way I was treated. One day, I got to see that I come from a poor family. One day, I got to see that my skin color is a shade darker. One day, I got to see that my last name and my ethnic background may not belong. One day, I got to see that maybe my religious background did not belong. And slowly over time, I got to see and learn that pieces of that child started like fading. And the garden like started to feel maybe unsafe forward, because as you go out, you just like have show-stopping moments where like people stop you and tell you that it's not for you. You don't belong in this garden. It's not for you, it's not safe. And sometimes that realization happens violently. And gosh, like over the years, I honestly was broken in ways that a lot of people don't come back from. And I don't wish what happened to me on anybody else. I wish you never think that your own home is no longer safe, and you don't have to file for asylum from your own family. I hope you'll never walk on the streets, and instead of being given the benefit of the doubt, have to let people know that you're a peaceful human and prove that. Because the default is not you being a peaceful spirit standing. And the truth is, like leading up to the 2022 World Cup, I understand from the outside, it can look like I took this really strong and brave stance, and I went out and said, gay rights are human rights, and I'm gonna go out and fight for that. And I did do that. But the truth is, even after I immigrated here, I like then got to see, because even somewhere in my head, I thought, it's better on the other side. But then I got to face racism, and I got to face like other things that I just didn't face in Qatar. And I was like, okay, there are like other like shades of hate and discrimination that I didn't know like could exist. And then went through like other forms of hate, including being domestically abused, which is something I didn't talk about publicly, but it also happened, and it was quite severe. And I did break all the way down, and I did think that I was not going to be able to get back up there. And in that desperate moment, actually, World Cup was being held in Qatar, and there were two investigative journalists. One was from Berlin and one was from London that worked for the Independent. And they found some gay men in Qatar that were able to testify on the challenges that they were facing and persecution based on their sexual orientation locally. And then they directed them to me in San Francisco to share parts of my story. And when they reached me here and like got parts of my story, I remember the journalist saying, "Don't worry, we're going to like keep this a secret so they don't find you, so they don't hurt you." And that well, like at the same time, Qatari officials have come out and said, "We don't have gay people here. Okay, this is we're a conservative culture. This is a Western thing, and we don't want Western values imposed on us." And because none of us could honestly like escape and be safe to speak up, the narrative was not challenged. And in that moment, what I did is I came up to them and said, "I exist." I was like, you can like have your own views about what that means. You can agree or disagree that queer person is part of human diversity. You can agree or disagree whether or not it's universal. But I exist. I exist and I belong. That's that moment where I decided to belong and exist and just say that I do exist had a massive rippling effect. And honestly, it started with that moment. It started with a moment of me going back and being excluded from so many spaces that I had nowhere else to go. There was nowhere else to go. It was so unsafe, I couldn't find a home. And I was tired of just adjusting constantly so that I am not dehumanized in all the million ways I was dehumanized. I got to a point and I said, no more. I am a human that belongs, and my human self and my dream and my joy as a child belong. And just from there, honestly, everything else that I did was built on them. And I brought something here with me because one of my activism outputs that I did in 2022 was to put two conflicting pieces together. Because in the Middle East, in Qatar, I was really dehumanized for being an LGBT person, referenced or symbolized by the rainbow flag. And in the West, I was dehumanized for being Arab. And when I wear my Arab garment, I get a very different reaction. People react to that. They react to that fabric that I wear. So I decided for my activism to wear both simultaneously. So I wear my traditional Arab garment and I wear a big rainbow sash on it. And that was like everybody was confused. But like, are you with them or are you with them? Where do you belong? And I was like, I just am. I just am. Like, I'll just stop dehumanizing me based on any piece of fabric that I wear on my body, or any parts or fragments of like the human that I am. And then like a lot of things happened, including like, people writing reports and people migrating and people going to asylum. 2 weeks ago, I was invited to the wedding of one of the refugees I helped, one of the first refugees I helped. And they gave me something that they gave for me. Oh. I mean, I literally cried all my tears that day. There was nothing left. In case you're wondering, this is where it did better than I did, for sure. It's so cute. And I was just staring at them, and here is a really like a complete stranger, and And I have a lot of moments like this actually, including you, like inviting me today to speak. And like this, I've been like having a lot of moments like this, and I was like, what is it that like makes people want to reach out to me sometimes and have me come to their space? And I really think it's me going back to that garden and going back to my child self and really thinking that I can have that garden again, and I can play again, and I can hope again, and I can dream again, and then fiercely protecting that child that is me. And then my journey of protecting that child resonates with the child in you and you and you and you and you. Because I can assure you, like whoever you are, I probably faced like a form of dehumanization that you did in some way or another. And once you learn to love the child that's you will learn to love and protect any other child anywhere. And think that their life is worth living, and their joy is worth manifesting, and their dreams are worth dreaming. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to give time. This is supposed to be engaging a discussion. We've been talking to you. I've been in rooms where I'm being talked to. I like for everyone or anyone if they feel comfortable to participate. So I'm gonna say this, surviving fascism is possible, but it requires strength. Most people, this has happened so many times, we know how this works. Most people put their heads down, they go to work, they return home from work, and they escape. They escape into a book, they escape into a phone, they escape into a dream, a drug, a glass of this, a glass of that, a bottle of this, a bottle of that. That is how they get through their day. And then they wake up the next day and they do the same thing. It's okay if that is what you're doing. I understand. Be kind to yourself and be gentle. The fact that you can get up and do anything at all is a reason to celebrate. Know your limits. Recognize what you can and cannot tolerate. So I'm going to ask this question and then we'll have a discussion. No disrespect to Anna Frank, but I would like to reframe this as mustering the courage of Dr. Nas Mohamed. What would mustering courage look like for you today? Anybody? Yes.
Thank you. First, I want to welcome you here. I am myself a friend of Dorothy, so I understand where you're coming from on many things. One thing that really concerns me is that 25 years ago, worldwide, there were 23 democracies. Today, there are only 12. And if we keep losing democratic countries, we're going to be in really big trouble. And many of the things you have talked about fit into a solution for this problem. I don't know what it is. I don't know if anybody really knows what it is, but we've got to move in that direction. So thank you for your comment.
All right.
Oh, so, okay. So we are at a time in our ability to understand government in a way that we really weren't able to understand before things were like put on blast, made public, recorded. Like technology has finally enabled us to see what democracy is. Democracy is not what we think it is. I wish it was. I think when Marcus Aurelius in 45 AD invented democracy, it was a perfection. Kind of like socialism, Marxism. On paper, wow. But now you have to put the human factor in. And the 7 sins, if you believe in those. What is a democracy? What is it? You know, we've had kingdoms, we've had authoritarianism, we've had dictatorships, we have this, we have that. No matter what is happening up there that you have no control of, ask yourself, what's happening in here that I do have control of? Because the only way people can take power is if you give them power. So if this kind of rhetoric is troubling your mind, your thinking, blocking creative process, blocking your ability to experience and create joy, then you are giving your power away. And I would encourage you to create joy. Do something joyful. Don't follow. Yeah, I wish that we weren't in the situation we're in. For some reason, it seems like a necessary thing for human evolution. I see this as an ascension process. The world is clearly being divided into 2 groups of souls. You can almost, before it was very difficult to kind of be like, oh, where are you in? No, you're either in that group or you're in this group. Now, this is again from my faith. My faith believes that there will be a new earth. Earth is dividing in 2. It is ascending. It is going to start vibrating at a higher level, including souls on earth vibrating at a higher level. Those souls who are not ready, they will be reborn into a similar earth, where they will repeat the same shit, the same suffering, the same wars, the same hate, the phobias and the disorders and the chaos and confusion over and over and over and over again until they finally get it. Oh. And then they will be reborn with the rest of us in the new earth. Where when someone asks, where are you from? No, but where are you from? The answer will simply be Earth. I'm from Earth. I'm an Earthling. Where are you from? And when someone says, what are you into? Like, what are you into? Like, you know, kindness, humor, compassion. Someone who likes the ocean. Someone who likes gardening. What are you into? It will no longer be about the genitalia that you're attracted to or that you want to connect with from time to time, whether you stand or sit to pee. About the character. Doesn't that sound beautiful? It's possible. And I think that is what's happening. But don't quote me on it in case I'm wrong. You know?
Maybe 5 more minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to go back to your original challenge of what would mustering and courage look like today. I already had like one moment today this morning. I ended up at a little spot when we're giving like free Welch's juices in the mission in a very like kind of crucial area. The way I mustered up courage is across the street, there was a guy that just did probably some form of drug. Everybody deemed was dangerous and was walking away from him. Nobody wanted to talk to him. I purposely crossed the street and gave him that juice and it made his day. So I mustered courage like that. I like to announce too that there was 2 crucial shootings in the Tenderloin this week. One at St. Anthony's and one at Glide. So to muster up courage, I'm gonna go get snacks after this, after this conference, and I'm gonna walk right through those 2 neighborhoods and hand out those snacks.
One thing I did this week to muster up courage, I think just so many thought-provoking words and questions, so thank you both. And our sanctuary team hosts accompaniment vigils at the ice courts in San Francisco. There are 2 locations, and so I've been thinking about it for years. Then finally on Thursday went, and it was really, I was still crying about it this morning. It was very powerful, but really, I thought worthwhile, and it was good for me to explore courage and limits, and everyone was so grateful that we were there singing and praying and handing out coffee and croissants, and so I think it felt like a little bit, but I'm glad to see that it gave people some hope, and now we'll do it again.
Just wanted to say thanks for being here. It strikes me that Anne Frank had a similar situation perhaps in that she lived in this community of Amsterdam and she loved it from what I gather. And all of a sudden she had to not be part of that. She couldn't, and maybe she had to wear a yellow star at some point, but at some point people didn't know that she was Jewish and then all of a sudden they did and she had to hide. And so thank you to both of you and to other people who are here for not having to hide or for choosing not to hide, because sometimes you have to hide for your safety. But because of your bravery and because of what you're doing, you're allowing other people to see you and, like you said, to exist. And you're here to take up space unapologetically. And thank you for doing that.
Sounds like we are on time, so thank you. We'll be around if you want to approach either of us. Again, I just want to say thank you for having me here.
Yes. I love him. So, yes, everything you just said, thank you for having us. I'm going to close with a quote, but before I do, I would like us to hold a moment of silence. But here's who we're holding the moment of silence for. Everyone suffering among us in this room today, as well as everyone throughout the world who is feeling alone and feeling afraid. Let's have a moment of silence. This is the final quote from our dear friend Anne Frank. I keep my ideals because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. Thank you.